Good evening, everybody. I hope you are well. Sorry for the short delay of getting on this evening. I had some technical issues, as always, which is wonderful. Say as always, actually, I've never had technical issues before once, actually. This is the very first time I had a problem like this without being able to get online. But hope everybody is well. Obviously, as always, on the start of the stream, please do share the stream. That's the first thing. The more you share it to your WhatsApp groups, onto your Facebook pages, retweet it on Twitter, and share however the share work option is on YouTube, please do so. We've got a good show coming up tonight. We got Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, who is the mayoral candidate for Hampshire, coming on the show in just a little while. We're obviously going to be talking about the recent events, and we're going to have a little bit of a spin on our Richard of the Week award this week. Yeah, so I hope everybody's well. So please feel free to comment. I'll put the comments on the screen in a second. Feel free to comment how you are. And it's been a shit week for me, to be honest with you. Let me just update this. 1 second. Yeah, it's been a bit of a crap week, really, to be completely honest with you. Not been the best week. This time last week I cancelled the show, as you know, because we had our Reform Christmas event, which is good. And I had a really busy Reform week last week. I went to Gosport. I think I had 5 Reform events last week, so it was really, really busy. And so we had the Portsmouth Christmas one on the Sunday, and then we went to Havant on the Monday. And then by midnight on Monday, I was absolutely ill as hell, like really, really unwell. Really unwell. Not good at all. Not good at all. And yeah, Tuesday I spent the whole day in bed. Now, to put that into perspective, I haven't spent the whole day in bed unless it's been a back issue, may I add. But even then, I can usually get to the sofa or whatever. But I haven't spent a day in bed where I'm literally passing in and out of consciousness all day. I don't know. 15 years, 20 years, maybe a long time anyway, a long time. Even when I had that COVID stuff, I was never in bed, but yeah, it's not a very good day. And then a couple of days to recover, but I'm back feeling all right. Touch wood. My partner's not feeling great, but I'm feeling all right. Touch wood. So, yeah, good. But I haven't had a takeaway this week, which means tonight will be even more special. Hopefully I'll be able to stomach it, because I'm not been able to stomach that much this week. I should be really skinny by now, but I don't think I look very skinny. Although I did put on the scales and I've lost 4 kilograms this week. So I'm happy with that. Probably not the best way of losing 4 kilograms, but nevertheless, take the wins where you can. But then, yeah, yesterday I felt all right. So I went over to Gosport to help my colleagues over in Gosport. Because there's a reform, well, it's not a reform by-election, there's a local by-election there on the 15th of January, which is a really weird time, by the way, for a by-election. Really strange time for a by-election, because it means you've got a campaign over Christmas, and no one really cares about local politics or by-elections over Christmas. I mean, not even me. I mean, I find it really weird to call a by-election on the 15th of January. But anyway, we've got a by-election on the 15th of January, and Reform have never won a council seat over in Gosport before, so that'll be amazing. So me and the team headed over there yesterday to help Paul, the candidate, and the chairman of the branch over there. And then today, I've been out in Eastleigh and Craneswater today, delivering some Christmas cards, and just been catching up with some bits, really. So yeah, busy old day. But I think, we need to start the show by obviously recognizing that horrendous terrorist attack that happened yesterday morning, yesterday evening or this morning, depending on what time you're on. And it was bad. It's not good. And these things repeatedly happen nowadays. And I put a video up online earlier about it, which has gone pretty well on Facebook. But I did a bit of research after it, because you always hear all the time, don't you, of these Islamic terrorist attacks. 1 second, my dog's barking. Rolo. Don't know what he's doing. You always hear these Islamic terrorist attacks going on. 1 second. I will play a video and we will be back. I tell you what, we'll play the video of me on Talk TV this week, because I've got to find out what's going on. And then we'll bring Chris Parry in, all right? So here is my interview on Talk TV this week.
Well, no, try as they may, they will do so. Now, let's talk about Portsmouth City Council, because some council Scrooges have ordered residents to take down their Christmas decorations, not because it's the Jesus stuff. No. You know what? It's that time of year, Christmas time, good old elves and all that. Yeah. The tinsel has to come down because of elf and safety. Let's speak now to George Madgwick, who is the reform leader of Portsmouth City Council, which is exactly where all this Scroogery is taking place. George, what's going on? Why can't they have their lights? Why can't they have their, inflatable snowman?
Madness. Great intro, Alex. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, absolute madness. That's what's going on. They're using a small government rule in relation to Section 41 to basically threaten residents, multiple residents. I think we've got a couple of hundred that have been received letters where they have said that either take down your Christmas wreath off your door or you're going to be fined. Equally, they're going to remove them and charge people for removing them as well. And they're saying that it's health and safety and it's a fire hazard, which is absolutely mind-blowingly stupid in my opinion.
Now, let me ask you something, because this is something a lot of people listening are probably going to want to know, because I don't get it, and so perhaps you can explain. This is Portsmouth Council, and they have used some sort of little-known bit of legislation to make people not decorate their homes, but who is they? Because you run that council. You're the leader, right, of reform.
I'm the leader of reform, but it's a Lib Dem run council.
So is it the Lib Dems, the councillors who are being the Scrooges here, or is it some sort of block of apparatchiks?
Well, at the end of the day, all councils are governed by the councillors, by the administration. So the Liberal Democrats could certainly put a stop to it. I mean, the Portsmouth City Council, they say they have a zero tolerance policy on this Section 41. And only 5 months ago, they asked all the residents to remove all their doormats from the floor, just in case firemen tripped up if there was a fire. So this is the same rule they're using, which still applies. But it's just silly. They could use their discretion. At the end of the day, it's Christmas. And I'm going to say Christmas, not the festive season. It's Christmas. And why shouldn't it be celebrated? And let's be honest, a small wreath outside on a door is not really going to cause a hazard, is it?
Who's come up with this? Is it sort of like some moron called Dave who's hasn't got a life, who sits there at a computer and wants to sort of make his pay packet mean something? Is he sort of part of the council civil service, or is this actually a political directive? I'm trying to understand who they is.
Yeah, so the law comes from the government. Fundamentally, the interview that I had earlier this week on Talk TV, and now, as promised, we've got a special guest on the show. It's Rear Admiral Chris Parry, who was recently selected as Reform UK's candidate for the Mayor of Hampshire, Solent, and the Isle of Wight. Welcome, Chris.
Yeah, hi George. Thanks very much indeed for having me.
No worries. Thanks for coming on. How has the last couple of days been?
It's been unusual, that's for sure. Yeah, we had a fantastic launch, as you well know, in Portsmouth, and the very same night we had a great launch with fabulous people, really great time. Of course, we found out that the government was preparing to postpone the elections for another 2 years. So 2 years beyond May and into 2028, which is a bit of a shame, because I had all my promotional literature ready to go, all my plans for Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, and of course we're now marking time, as we say in the military.
Yeah, and this is only the fourth time in modern history where elections have been cancelled. Obviously, the first was the war, as you know. The second one was during COVID, and the other two were this year and last year. It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an issue. I mean, it's the sort of thing that happens in Turkey and in Hungary, to tell you the truth, in these sort of what I call soft tyrannies. It doesn't really happen in the United Kingdom, but we know that the Labour Party is running scared at the moment. We also know that the electoral calculus showed that in all 4 mayoral areas, including our own, Reform were on track to win it very easily indeed.
And do you think that may have had a factor in their decision-making process when obviously cancelling the elections?
Well, I think in postponing them, yeah, I think it was a key decisive factor. And, as I said to the news outlets at the time, I said, I'm used to people running away from me in the battlefield, but I've never seen anybody run so fast as Keir Starmer's government the minute we put ourselves in the field. It was incredible. I think there was a bit of an issue with the current councils, to tell you the truth. They're the incumbents. They're keen to hang on to their jobs and sinecures and things like that. So they were willing Everybody's afraid of reform. Of course they are. They're afraid of the people of this country, and indeed Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. And I'm afraid the existing establishment doesn't want to move away.
No, they don't. They absolutely don't. So for those of you that are watching at home that aren't familiar with Chris, and obviously, I mean, Chris, you've done a lot of TV, haven't you? Done GB News and Talk and BBC and LBC and everything else. But for those of you at home that aren't familiar with Chris, do you want to give us a little introduction, Chris, into who you are, your background, and some information that's useful for the viewers?
Very lucky. I come from a fairly ordinary background. My father was in the Navy. He was a petty officer initially, did very well in the end. But I was lucky enough to get what is known as an assisted place at Portsmouth Grammar School. So I was able to get on. I went to Oxford. I joined the Navy. I'm an aviator and warfare officer. I fought in the Falklands War and had a great career in the Royal Navy, commanded a destroyer, assault ship, amphibious group, and ended up in several jobs in the Ministry of Defence doing strategic planning and operational delivery. Since I left in 2008, I've been running my own strategic forecasting business. I tell governments, banks and companies about how the world is and how it's going to be. And I'm also an academic. I have a doctorate in psychology and I teach at various universities around the UK. All that was going to give way, of course, if we started our mayoral campaign this week.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's it's a good background story. But obviously, what you said is relevant because obviously you haven't had a background massively in frontline politics as an elected politics. So, what made you want to stand to be the mayor of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight? What kind of after the whole career you've had, a massively successful career, an honoured career, what made you want to put your head above the parapet and do that?
George, I care deeply about our county, everything about it, the people with whom I share my life, my neighbours and everything. And, quite a lot of our public services, our social fabric, law and order, it's decaying fast. And I have to say, there's a very famous political economist called John Stuart Mill. He said, look, if you want bad things to happen, good people do nothing. And I thought at this time, we've actually got to step forward and do something for our country and our region, because if we don't, we're just going to go down the same old road. Nothing's going to happen. And the good people with whom I share my life are just going to carry on suffering from what I call bad government, poor strategic decisions, and also carrying on in the same old way. We've got to change the geometry. We've got to change the dynamic of the way we look after our people in our region and in our country more widely, to tell you the truth. And that's why I did it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good reason. I think that a lot of people, in my experience anyway, a lot of people kind of are almost tired of politicians in a sense because, politicians, certainly from the tri-party, the Labour, Liberal, Cons, have just made these promises over years and well, they just seem to lie. I mean, look at Labour recently. Everything they're doing is kind of counter to what their manifesto was. I was speaking the other day, and I'd love your view on this, but I was saying that since they got elected, obviously they've taken the winter fuel allowance away from OAPs. They've misled or lied, whatever you want to call it, on the budget with the black hole. They've now got David Lammy has now announced that they are going to take away juries from trials where people could be convicted for 3 years or less. And now they've cancelled 2 elections in a row. For me, that almost feels like a authoritarian government rather than a democratic government. And I think they're kind of verging on the danger of becoming almost, some might say, a dictatorship.
No, George, I mean, the fact of life is, I mean, they came into office, our Labour regime, without actually having any plan at all. Their sole preoccupation was getting into power. And then, of course, they found themselves in power. And then they thought, well, how are we going to deal with all of this? And of course, the real world doesn't stop. You can't get off the conveyor belt. My biggest, I think you put your finger on it, George, and that is the fact that to be a successful politician in the current system, you have to be somebody you're not. And I'm afraid to say there's a real lack of authenticity and self-awareness in most of our national politicians at the moment. And, the real resonance I get when I'm talking to people locally, particularly in relation to this mayoralty, is they want real people. People who've done jobs, people who really care about their local community and are going to deliver for them. You probably saw in the Telegraph last week, I got criticised by the Telegraph for some very plain speaking about some of our national politicians. Well, you know, the Telegraph didn't think that was great, but you know, hundreds of people who actually signed up on the comments and on Twitter thought it was brilliant because they're not used to hearing the truth.
Yeah.
You know, I'm afraid a lot of politicians now, in order to get selected, to get voted in, as I said, have to be people they're not. And of course, I know from my own time as a psychologist, if you've got a big gap between the person you really are and the person you're projecting to get votes and this, that, and the other, you get all sorts of distortions, neuroses in decision making and behaviors. And you know, when you put a politician on the spot and say, well, actually, is that true? You hear all these excuses, you hear all these evasions coming out, and of course, they behave in really bad ways. The fact of life is, if you're not serving the people who vote you in, then you're not doing your job. It's as simple as that. In the Navy, I'm used to looking after ships companies. We don't just take them to war, we look after every aspect of their lives. And we have this expression, all of one company, everybody counts. And one of my slogans would have been, in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, still is as we go forward into 2028, is everyone counts and every pound counts. It's as simple as that. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's, you know, it's our home, it's our lives, it's our future. And if we don't grip that together, and that's the other thing, of course, politicians have to see themselves in partnership with the people they're representing. They're not some elevated status above the people they're supposed to represent. And I think that's where it all goes wrong. We need to get back to grassroots. What politics? Politics, of course, comes from the Greek word meaning people, and people forget that.
Yeah, I mean, David Lammy, going back to this court thing, because this is something that's really unsettled me in the last couple of weeks. I mean, David Lammy himself was interviewed a couple of years ago, and he said in relation to getting rid of juries in trials that any government that suggested such an idea would be an authoritarian government, and he would absolutely say no to any suggestion of that. So now he's presenting that. Do you find that a deep concern that we're taking away juries from trials under 3 years? So can you see why that's a problem?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, this is a right that goes back beyond Magna Carta. You know, we're talking about beyond 1215. That's, you know, just what, 25 years after Portsmouth was founded in 1190, you know. So we've got to think how ancient that right is. And it protects you against the predatory nature of the state and activist judges. It's as simple as that. If you take away jury trials, you know, you just cannot you know, imagine the sort of things that will come out the back of that. I mean, David Lammy is a shapeshifter anyway. I mean, if you asked him 10 years ago, he said it was against his conscience to support nuclear weapons. Well, it's a funny old thing. Now he does. And there are all sorts of other things. He's a foreign secretary that decided that he wanted to be on the side of his you know, Guyanese sort of ancestors and support reparations for the empire and slavery. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't think the UK Foreign Secretary should be actually fighting on behalf of other countries. It's as simple as that.
The interests of other nations. Yeah,
and then we come on to the Chagos Islands. You know, probably the most strategically important base in the world. And this government, led by David Lammy as Foreign Secretary, wanted to give it away. I've not just got a downer on David Lammy, by the way. I've got a downer on the whole regime. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, the Chagos Islands, I was going to ask you about that because obviously, for me personally, I personally believe that it's one of the most serious things, negative things that this Labour government has done because of the strategic value of it. Obviously, we know about Diego Garcia, and the Chagosians themselves, I believe, didn't want the islands to be handed over to the Mauritians. And I don't believe either, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Mauritians have actually ever had the ownership of the Chagos Islands through history. So, I mean, how do you feel from a military perspective and from a defence perspective specifically, why this is such a bad decision on behalf of Labour?
Well, there's a number of things. As you say, George, the Chagosians who probably got the best right to it, you know, they haven't had a say at all. Mauritius is 1,500 miles away, and as you say, again, has never had any right to it. And why are we paying them 38 billion pounds over the next 99 years in order to lease it back? From a military point of view, if you were to think of a geographical location in the world smack in the middle of the Indian Ocean, which is absolutely critical for strategic security in the 21st century, you would put it where Diego Garcia is. If you add to that the fact that the Mauritians are very close and in debt to the Chinese, the Russians are sniffing around, you can see why it's a serious military problem.
And do you think that that decision they've made will have consequences in decades to come?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's going to have consequences almost immediately. I think as soon as sovereignty is formally handed over, you'll find Russian fishing boats, you'll find intelligence gatherers, you'll find some of the islands, I suspect, will have structures on them that look remarkably like radar sites and things like that. And, we're going to find ourselves surrounded out there with all sorts of things that will inhibit our military operations there. And what's really annoying, though, George, is that there is a let-out clause in a thing called the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which actually allows us to say we're not interested in giving you sovereignty. Now, given the fact our government is run by lawyers, we employ lawyers to do things on our behalf, not work against us, which is what's happened here.
So yeah, I know, and it's been pushed by civil servants as well. But I think there's sometimes, as in politics, there's administrations that are led by officers and others that lead the officers. And I always think it's dangerous when you allow civil servants with a certain political leaning, to dictate what the elected officials do.
It's not just that, George. It's that they think it's a pain to actually have to deal with it. I remember after we took back the Falklands, I heard civil servants in the Foreign Office saying, "Well, it's a pity we had the military capability. We wouldn't have been able to take them back, and it wouldn't be a problem anymore." I mean,
Terrible.
what kind of attitude is that? And
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to understand, I think, that not everybody who works for either politically or in the civil service has the interests of this country at heart. And in reform, we like to think that everybody's primary allegiance is to the United Kingdom and its interests. And if it weren't, then I wouldn't be a member.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely and utterly agree with you there. Going back to Hampshire, so obviously the election, as you know now, is now postponed, which is unfortunate. But if it wasn't postponed, and looking into the future of 2028, what were the kind of things that you felt were most needed for Hampshire? What are the things that you would like to have targeted?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've got to remember that Hampshire and the Isle of Wight is probably one of the best places to live and work in and to invest in the United Kingdom. My sense was, though, that we were losing it a bit in certain areas. There are parts of Southampton, the Isle of Wight especially, there are pockets of poverty and deprivation that we need to sort out. It's not good enough for people to sit in Winchester, in Petersfield and places like that and say, yeah, it's fine. It isn't fine across our region. And there's no reason why we can't bring everybody's sort of value of life up. We've got to have an integrated transport system. We've got to get the ferries sorted out with the Isle of Wight and things like that. We've got to bring ourselves into the 21st century in terms of other infrastructure and communications. And my own sense is if you can enforce the rule of law, and law and order is important, you can provide people with physical, medical, mental, digital security, then you're going to attract talent, you're going to attract investment, and basically we'll improve the quality of everybody's life around us. But it's a question of taking charge and saying to central government, we are going to make this place what we want it to be. And I think coming round in a circle, you listen to our people and say, what do you want for our county and the Isle of Wight? Because there's not enough listening. There's a lot of directing. And part of what I want to bring to the party is the fact I'm used to dealing at central government level. I know how it operates, and there'll be a lot of negotiation, very frictional negotiation with central government over budgets and the sort of strategic priorities of the region itself. I mean, we've got a great county, fantastic county, we've got everything. And we've just got to make it, work for everybody, not just, half the population.
Yeah, what makes me sad is obviously the regional council of mayors that meet up with government, government cabinet ministers on a regular occasion. And the idea is that by summer next year, we would have a seat at that table, because at the moment those conversations happen without us being present there. And I think it's a real shame because, it's delayed that process by another 2 years. So we're set back again another 2 years. And I also I'm concerned that the fact that the Labour government used the mayoral elections and local government reorganisation as an excuse to postpone last year's elections.
Yeah.
And now the reason they postponed it is no longer being active this year. And it makes me wonder what they're going to postpone or cancel next year, because if the mayoral elections aren't happening until 2028 now, which I find really bizarre, by the way, and I'll go on to why in a second, it asks you what you're going to do with 2027, because in 2027 we're meant to have the local government reorganisation elections, which are for the combined authority. And for
Yeah.
the people that are watching at home, the combined authority is of the governance, of the responsibility of the elected mayor. So for me, it seems really bizarre and strange that they are now suggesting local government reorganisation to still remain and that election to be in 2027 for a new combined authority, whilst meanwhile not having the figurehead, the mayor, elected into that role until a year after its implementation. Is a very bizarre situation.
Well, what makes it worse, George, it's like saying to somebody, look, we're going to ask you to command a ship, okay? You're going to get no say over which one it is, how it's configured, how it's crewed, or anything like that. And by the way, if you crash it, it will be your fault.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the best practice in all sort of strategic design and planning is to say to somebody, what's your strategy and what structures and what outcomes are going to come off the back of that.
Yeah.
And the first thing you put in place is somebody who's actually in charge who can implement it. And as
Yeah.
you say, it's completely the wrong way around. And so, yeah, we know this is not about anything to do with practicality. It's to do with people running scared of reform. I've seen a document which Nigel Farage showed me, which said that Labour didn't want any more than one reform council elected every year.
Yeah.
It's a complete conspiracy against the good people of our county, to tell the truth.
And this is the other thing as well, that once again, this is for information to people at home. You'll know this only too well, but like at this moment in time, at this very second in time, there is local councillors deciding who the interim chief executive officer will be, the interim monitoring officer of the mayoral authority. And those decisions are being made by the currently elected councillors, which are mainly in our areas, Liberal Democrat, Labour, some of the Conservative, but certainly not Reform. We don't have a seat at that table currently. And by delaying the election last year, and obviously now the mayor election this year, is actually delaying Reform a seat at that table to govern the creation of this combined authority and mayor role. So essentially, when you're successful in 2028, you'll be handed as Reform an authority that's been created and implemented by councillors that are not Reform and have had no say in it.
Yeah, also there'll be contracts in place, George, that I won't be able to shift. So if we've got complete incompetence been appointed, or people who've got connections to the councillors, I can't get rid of them because they'll have contracts in place that will extend into the future. We know how this is going to be stitched up. So no, I mean, the government, if they have thought about it, have discounted all of this sort of stuff. It's not about best practice. But let's face it, George, they're not going to be in power from 2029, so they're not going to have to live with the consequences, are they?
Because that's probably why they're trying to set us all up. Anyway, Chris, I've got a couple of questions for some viewers that have been submitted, if you'd be so kind to answer them. So the first one is from Lynn Leach. I'll put it on the screen as well. Lynn asks, what could you do to offer to help small businesses in Hampshire?
Right. The first thing is we've got to provide a good infrastructure, digital and transport environment, one that's integrated, that reduces costs and things like that. We've got to lower the burden, obviously, of taxation as much as we can. And we've got to give every business the opportunity to grow and put all the obstacles out of the way. We've got to champion our small businesses. I was at Paulton's Park recently and looking at Paulton's and how that grew over time. Today, Paulton's Park couldn't grow from its origins to what it is today if you look at all the restrictions, taxes and liabilities that lie on it. So we've got to take the burdens off small businesses, encourage them to grow. It's like, trying to put seeds in over the winter, expecting them to come up in the spring when you're pressing down on them. It's just not going to happen. You've got to give them the light. You've got to give them the oxygen. You've got to give them the water. And if you don't do that, you can't expect small businesses to thrive. If and when I'm elected, what we're going to do is have a small business unit that will be specifically there to energize, help, and give guidance to small businesses that want to make their way.
Amazing. The next question is from the Deputy Chairman of Portsmouth Reform, which is Lamara Fudge, and she asks, will you consult with local councillors and members when creating policy if you're elected?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest sort of the most notable bit of my anatomy is going to be my ears. I really want a working and thinking relationship and learning relationship with the people in our county and in the Isle of Wight. I mean, every time I go to the Isle of Wight, people say nobody listens to us across the Solent. So, that's going to happen for a start. I'm going to spend quite a bit of my time in the Isle of Wight once I'm elected, because it's actually quite important. And yes, of course, I'm going to consult, and not just with local councillors from Reform. Everybody's going to get a vote, because I'm not just here for those people who will vote for me. I'm here for everybody. And so, of course, we're going to consult. I'm going to spend a lot of time. In fact, I'm expecting to get my ears thoroughly bent during my time in office, to tell you the truth. And I hope I will do. I'm here for you. I'm not here for me.
Brilliant. Good. And the final question we got is from Jenny Jones, who says, will Reform act for the people if they are elected? What reassurance can you give that the elites and civil servants won't control your work?
That's a really good question. Yeah, of course. Reform, everyone's going to work for the people. These are the people that put us in place. And if you've followed me in the Royal Navy, you'll know that the elites and civil servants never got their way. I joined the Navy to be a pirate, and I continued that way all the way through. So I'm not going to put up with that sort of behaviour, and the people will be the most important thing in my mayoralty.
Perfect. Perfect. So before we leave it there for the night, and thank you very much, Chris, coming in, what do you think
Pleasure.
the future holds for Reform now? So on a wider perspective, if you've got, say, for the next 5 years, let's look into the future of 2030. What do you think the future holds for Reform?
Well, I think it's just going to build. What I think we've got to do is start building coherent policies at national level that people can latch onto, they can identify with. I think the National Party has got to grow talent, attract talent as well, and make sure that we look like a party that can govern the country and these regions by the time we're elected. It's as simple as that. And I think, if I may be so bold, I think Mr. Farage has got to surround himself with very serious people in every sort of area that we're going to have to cover. And part of that is taking a look at the future and saying, well, what sort of people do we need? And I know Mr. Farage has said already that he doesn't just want MPs right at the top table. He wants people who know about stuff, who've done stuff. And I think that's really healthy indeed. That's a slightly American approach, of course, because, as you know, quite a lot of the American cabinet is appointed by the president. We can't go too far in that direction. But I think, we've got to get talent right out in front. We've got to have good MPs in position as well, because we don't want a situation where we get a huge majority or a good working majority, and we end up looking like the Labour Party. We've got ourselves in, but we don't know what we're going to do. What we've got to do is say to the people, this is what we're going to do, and then we've got to deliver it. And that takes good people at every level to do that. But this is going to be a participatory government. I think the way that Mr. Farage envisaged it is it's going to be a bottom-up led government in practically every area. And I think that's incredibly important. I think the key message I get out there is it's going to change. What you've been used to in the past at national, regional, and local level is not fit for purpose. It's got to change. It's as simple as that. How's it going to change? Is that everybody in a position of responsibility within Reform is going to be accountable, really, really very important indeed. So you'll be able to say, actually, who's not getting this right, and indeed who is getting it right. And I think that discipline will be very important, to tell you the truth.
I think one of the things you just said there, and I'll actually do a follow-on question to this, because you raise a really good point about the House of Lords. And obviously, if Nigel is going to bring in business leaders and experts in, they'll obviously have to be put in as ministers through the House of Lords. So he'll have to appoint them as a Lord and then as a cabinet minister, which I think is a great idea. And I think I absolutely agree with it. A few people have actually given me some counter on that, and I think it's a really good, fresh idea, because why wouldn't you want the people that are at the top of their game leading the government? So I fully support that. But leading on from that question, a thing that's kind of been raised to me a few times, I'd love your opinion on it, is the House of Lords. Now, in a sense of that, we've got what, 800 lords roughly currently, and we don't have any reform lords other than obviously Lord Offord, who we believe is now going to stand down very shortly from being a lord. But this does mean that if Nigel Farage and Reform win it even a massive majority at the next general election, will they not have problems getting policy through because the House of Lords will hinder them at every angle because they're Reform? And the secondary point to that question is that what does Nigel do about that? Because if he then wants to control the House of Lords, will he have to make 300 new lords on day one? And will that be acceptable to the people?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for Mr. Farage at the moment on this. We know that he's seeking to get rid of the Lords as a second chamber. Now, if we accept that we need a second chamber, we're going to need transitional arrangement. You're absolutely right. The Prime Minister won't allow Mr. Farage to have any peers right now, which is ridiculous when you consider that the Greens have got 2 peers and they only had 1 MP until recently. So that's absolutely ludicrous. Now, I think there's going to have to be a transitional arrangement. You're absolutely right. If he's going to get through legislation, I can tell you what I would do. Okay, what I would do is, you're absolutely right, George. I'd appoint as many plastic peers, as I needed to get legislation through, and I would say, but your time expired. You're a peer for a year, then you resign. That's the deal. And then we start talking. In fact, I hope it's going to be in the manifesto. We talk about what's going to replace the Lords.
Yeah, I think we need to.
And, I think that's something we've got, that my own view, it is my own view, we've got to deliver something that is credible for the people. In fact, I have an idea for the second chamber. What we should do, I think, is have 80 people or so who know about how to manage business in the second chamber. And here's a radical idea. I think you should do the House of Lords like you do jury service. We should look at the quotas of religions, professions, and all sorts of things up and down the country. And you should get a letter, drop on your mat in Milton or in Millbrook or something like that, or in Ryde. And it says, we're going to give you income substitution for 2 years. You are going to sit in the House of Lords, or whatever it's going to be called, secondary chamber, and you vote according to your conscience. So in 2 years, you've got no opportunity at all to be able to form party alliances. You just vote according to your conscience, and you simply say to the House of Commons, by vote, it's not good enough, we don't like it, throw it back. Because you know what? I fundamentally believe in the common sense of the British people.
And it would truly be independent, which would be wonderful.
Yeah, and you might end up with 400 out of 600 Labour sympathisers, but hey, that's the breaks. It's the same on a jury. But I'd like to think that, as I said, somebody in Milton or Millbrook or Ryde, suddenly one day, doesn't matter where you are, you're going to represent this country for 2 years. After that, you go back to being a private citizen. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Chris. We appreciate it. Dead on half an hour as well, which is good time. So thank you very much for coming on, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, who is the nominated mayor candidate for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight whenever those elections happen. Coming up next, we've got the Richard of the Week award, as we do every week. But now let me show you a short interview from Talk TV just earlier this afternoon. Disappointing, shocking and silly, isn't it, really? It's PC gone absolutely mind-blowingly crazy, and health and safety being used as an excuse again, as you said, quite rightly so. How many people have perished because of a Christmas wreath hanging on the door? This has caused a massive national news story. It's caused outrage amongst, by the way, this isn't a letter to one resident. This has been sent to hundreds of residents across the city. This isn't just an isolated thing. And it's caused a stress.
Preemptively warning them not to put wreaths up because it's a danger to health and safety.
No. They've gone around and proactively got officers to go into blocks and report back what wreaths people have got.
They sent the wreath police round the estates of Portsmouth City Council.
Correct. They've sent officers round on different duties. I know, different duties, and if they've seen wreaths, they've made a note of it and sent people letters out. And they've either given them 7 days to remove it, or they will remove it themselves and whack them with a £25 fine for the pleasure of it as well. So that was my interview on LBC, not Talk TV, LBC. Thanks very much for Chris coming on. Really do appreciate it. And in just a moment's time, I will chuck on the comments as I always do. Here, let's put the comments on. Yeah, sorry about earlier. My dog, which is still barking outside, Rolo, is barking. I got a new hay thing for the fish pond that goes on top of the fish pond. It collects all the algae on the top, and Rolo doesn't like it. That's what we discovered was he was barking at earlier. But but yeah, so that's what I was dealing with earlier. But yeah, so thanks very much, Chris, coming on the show. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for the comments that are obviously were coming through during that as well. Yeah, it was good. It was good, and fingers crossed we get to this more common sense approach of politics in the coming years. I think it's coming. It feels like it's coming, doesn't it? Like, if you spoke to people a year ago even about reform, a lot of people wouldn't openly admit they supported reform. People wouldn't openly talk about local politics and things like that. But slowly but surely, people are starting to do it, which is great. But as I say, we're 50 minutes into the show now. I've not taken any questions, so please start firing through questions if you have any for me, or any comments or anything you want to talk about. As always, I'll try to finish around 8 o'clock. I always say 8 o'clock, but I never ever do it. So let's say around 8 o'clock. And before we go to the Rich of the Week award, and we'll explain that to you what that is for people that are watching for the first time, I just want to highlight that this week is the Christmas number one, and at the moment it looks like there's a chance that a pro-Palestine song could get to number one. We had the Crew Kern Gazettes on my show last night, and they're at number 2 at the moment on iTunes, and the Palestine song's at number 1. But yeah, the official chart announcement, or the Big Top 40 announcement was what, an hour ago now, and they're already at number 3 in the charts. So they're doing really, really well, this pro-Palestine group. So I'm really worried that we're going to end up with a bloody pro-Palestine song at Christmas number 1, which is just not appropriate. So the best chance we've got of beating that is probably Wham's Last Christmas, and the Crew Kern Gazettes take a dump on number 10. So I'm just going to show you 30 seconds of their song. It's a comedy song for Christmas, but if you are feeling generous and you want to donate 79p to the rape gang survivors, then go download that song on iTunes. And here's a 30-second clip.
Hey! Special delivery for Cirque here. Hey! Santa suits, shiny boots, jingle on the floor. Knock, knock, number 10, Kier opened the door. Made my list, checked it twice, guess who's there again? Nigel Claus is coming down the flue at number 10. Hey, hey, Santa dump at number 10. Hey, hey, I'll dump on Kier. And then, whoa, 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 let's count to 10. Dump, dump, dump at number 10.
So this is the reason why I had to disappear earlier. This little puppy. Hello, everyone. This is Rolo. He's puppy number 2. And then I've got, come here, Fred. Come here. And I've got doggy number 1, which is here. Freddie. He's my number 1 dog. And that's his actual biological brother. So Freddie's 4, almost, aren't you, bud? Almost 4. And he's my first child. And then Rolo here is his brother, but it's actually his biological brother, which is cool. But Rolo is, what are you now, 5 months old? I don't know. He's still a young boy, but these are the reasons why I had to disappear earlier. But yeah, go over there, buddy. So yeah, so that's the song obviously going up. Thanks very much for watching, everybody watching the Chris Parry coming on and talking. That was really, really good. And Reform are changing. Kerry's just said Reform are changing the way people look at politics. And I agree. I think we need to, and it's something I did as an independent. Obviously, I'm Reform now, and I joined Reform back in July. But back before I was an independent for 6 years, was I? And being an independent, we try to make people look at politics differently. And I think Reform have captured onto that kind of feeling that independents also do, and that's real grassroots. Listen to people. And I always say when I'm doing because I do a lot of traveling to speak at different branches and stuff, and I always say to people that Reform needs to do it differently. When we knock a door, when we speak to residents, we don't need to tell people what we're going to do. We need to listen to what people want us to do. I think that's what often politicians forget, and I think that's really, really important. So anyway, moving on, Richard of the Week award. For those of you that are brand new to the show, every single week I allow you guys to nominate a Richard of the Week. And a Richard of the Week is somebody that's done something, said something stupid. It can be local, can be national, international, could be whatever it is, but we highlight it. And over the last month, we've had some great nominations and some great winners, some MPs and party people and random stupid comments on Twitter and Facebook. It's been a real good time. In fact, I think a couple of weeks ago, we ended up doing a whole show basically on the Richard of the Week awards because it was that interesting. However, tonight we're going to do it at something a little bit differently. And we are going to give the Richard of the Week awards to one person or two people. And we're not going to vote on it or anything else like that because there is nobody in the world that deserves it more than this prick right here. So we're going to make it serious. We cannot possibly vote on anybody else. Because this is one of the pricks that killed and massacred loads of people last night, Jewish people in Australia last night. And it didn't feel appropriate for me to be doing a award for the most ridiculous thing of the week as a comedy thing on the day that this happened. And I think that the award should go to the biggest prick of the week. And this is by far the biggest prick of the week. And I'm glad that they are in prison. Personally, I think they should be executed, but that's a different kind of politics. So the Richard of the Week award this week is going to be given to him and him and his colleague. And the hero of the week is going to go to this man. This is the man, Mr. Ahmed, that stopped the attack continuing. You've probably seen the video on social media. He tackled the shooter to the floor and got shot himself, actually, but tackled the shooter to the floor. And he was a hero. God knows how many lives he saved. God knows how many lives he saved. So this is the hero of the week. And I think, good on him. Good on him. I think he was a local fruit and veg retailer or something. But yeah, kudos to that man. And I just wanted to highlight that this week. So that the Richard of the Week award this week is going to these two men for murdering all those people. And I think it's nice to have a serious one for once because what they did was disgusting. And as I say, I personally think they should be hung for it. I think I would say that I am a very light advocate for bringing back the death penalty. I don't like the death penalty because I always think you can always get it wrong. I think that even when things look like they are bang to rights guilty, there has been instances before where people have been murdered or killed on death row, executed, and they then what's the word? Promiscuously, whatever it's called. What's that bloody word called? After someone dies, I can't even talk. You guys want me to be an MP? Are you sure? But after people have died, they then found out that they were actually innocent because DNA and science advances, and they found out these people are innocent, but they were been executed. So I don't like the death penalty, and I wouldn't say I'm a massive advocate for it, but I think there is certain circumstances where the death penalty is appropriate, and I think that this is one of those times. I think that if you are bang to rights on camera, loads of witnesses, you murder loads of people in cold blood for no reason at all, if it involves children, etc., I think just kill them. Why keep this person alive for the next 60 years of his life in a prison, feeding him 3 times a day? But no, not worth it. Just get rid of him. Might be controversial, but I'd say I think there's certain people in this world, not many, but certain people in this world that do qualify for the death penalty. So yeah. But as I say, I'm not going to stay on much longer tonight. It's been a busy old week with illness. Ugh. And now I've got lots of catching up to do. I've got a lot of stuff to do because not only was do you know when you're that ill sometimes? I feel better now, but do you know when you're that ill sometimes that you don't even go on your phone? I literally went on my phone on the end of Tuesday and I think it was like 50 odd missed calls and a couple of 100 messages, and I just Nah, didn't care. Just switched off. But I've only really got back on the ball since yesterday, really. So yeah, I've got lots of things to catch up on, which I'm going to do. And there is another announcement next week. What day is it next week? The 21st of December. Yeah. I am Charlene said controversial never. I am controversial. But there I am going to make an announcement on the 21st of December. It's actually meant to be on the Monday, but I'll do it on this show exclusively first. But I do have an announcement to make, and it's a genuinely serious announcement. It's about something that's going to be changing, and it involves me. So yeah, there is an announcement coming next week. I hope most people see it as a step up rather than a step down. But you know, I'll always gauge opinions. But yeah, got an announcement next week. I also said to my partner Emily, I'm going to do a Christmas Day show as well. I don't know why. I always work Christmas Day, first of all. So Christmas Day for me isn't like Christmas Day for most people. I always work Christmas Day. Always have done, always will do, probably. And yeah, I'm going to do a show Christmas Day for an hour because people are bored at home. You know, you always have Christmas Day and all your family come round, you do all the presents, you eat all the food. And then, like, you just sit on the sofa, don't you? And it's boring for the rest of the night. You don't want to play games or play this. I thought, you know what? I'll do a little bit of an hour show on Christmas Day. If one of you tune in, happy days. If a couple hundred of you tune in, happy days. But I'll do an hour show on Christmas Day as well. I can't even say that word, Steve. Why can I not say that word? Posthumous. Right, let me just, I'm going to have to Google this. Because I'm being illiterate. How do you say the word is it posthumous? Posthumous. Most common mistake is the H sound, but it's silent, so it's posthumous. There you go, posthumous. There you go. Now I know how to say it. Well, that was an interesting bit of live streaming, wasn't it? God, that was exciting. Raj has said always works Christmas Day. Love it. I love it. I love working Christmas Day too. It's a different kind of vibe Christmas Day. I think if you get customers coming, because obviously I do a lot of retail, and I think Raj, you do retail too, don't you? But I think on Christmas Day, people are different. Customers are lovely and friendly, and everyone's jolly. The roads are empty, so you can drive around really easily. It's just really nice. I just like working Christmas Day. I don't Someone's just put postmumus. Don't confuse me now, Raj. I've just got the words. But yeah, so I'll do a little show on Christmas Day, and then we're going to have a break over New Year's, and then we're going to be back in January. But we're going to be back, hopefully, in a studio setting. I said I was in the middle of building a studio, and I am. I'm in the middle of building a studio. It's going to be good, fingers crossed, because I do a lot of TV stuff now. As probably a lot of you know, I do a lot of Talk TV and LBC and GB News. I don't post all the interviews as much as I used to, because back in the day when I used to do them, I used to get so excited about doing them, because obviously I never used to do them before. So because I never did them, every single time I did one, I was like, all right, let me post it. But I do like 15 a week now, and it takes ages to rip them offline and cut them all up and put them on Facebook and stuff. So, but yeah, I do a lot now, and they want me to start doing more political commentary. So instead of going on there just for 5 minutes, they want me on for like an hour, for example. And to do that, I need a proper professional setup. So yeah, so fingers crossed. Hopefully, when these shows start in the new year, I'll have a professional little studio set up, which would be cool. I can speak to you from there, which would be nice. But yeah, so it's all good. And also, I've got a podcast as well coming out with a special guest. Now, I'm not going to reveal too much about that either, but I'm really excited about that. We're doing like a 2-hour podcast every month. So it's going to be like a month one, but we're going to break it into 4 segments and release like one a week, if that makes sense. And then we'll upload the shorts on Facebook and YouTube and things like that. But I've got a podcast with a really special guest, and I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. Now, Brian, my dad says posthumous. So someone says posthumous. Someone said postmumus. Someone says posthumous. No one knows how to pronounce it, do they? Nobody. But yeah, I've got a podcast that's we're going to do from I think middle of January, end of January. But that I'm really excited about because you should love that. I hope you love it. It's a really interesting concept. I don't know any. Well, I don't know anyone else that does this similar kind of thing. There isn't anybody that does this similar kind of thing. We've looked and looked and looked and looked. It doesn't exist. So we've got a really cool idea for a podcast. And yeah, so I've got a few announcements coming out. So yeah, really, really looking forward to it. Ray says, check your phone. He's gonna send me a voice note. I can see it's gonna come and it's gonna say posthumous. If it isn't the way you say it, and he's sending me some kind of weird message, then I do apologize, Ray, but I'm gonna risk it.
The way to say it is posthumous.
Posthumous. There you go. Repeat that.
The way to say it is posthumous.
Posthumous. So a posthumous. Oh, whatever. Right, I'm going to go now, but thank you everybody for coming on the show. As I say, I'll be doing a live stream next week where I'll be revealing some exclusive news, and I hope everybody takes it really well. I hope. It's a change, but I hope. And don't worry, I'm not leaving Reform for anybody who starts speculating over the bloody week. It's actually to do with Reform, to be fair. But got an announcement coming out next week. And then say I'll be doing a Christmas Day show. Then I'm going to have a break over the rest of the year until January. And yeah, on to then. Well, Brian, I thought you taught you better. I can spell it in phonetic alphabet. P for Papa, O for Oscar. I can do the phonetic alphabet. I just can't say the bloody word. It's the same thing, isn't it, Brian? So my dad, right? My dad could never say the word balloon. So he always used to say the word baboon instead. So he could never say the word balloon. So every time he had to, because he was a clown, every time he had to blow up a balloon model, it was a baboon model because he couldn't say the word balloon, could your father? I remember that too. So, why is everyone saying check my messages? Now my nephew's messaged me saying check your messages, but I haven't got a message from you, Jack. Where have you messaged me, bro? I don't know where my nephew's messaged me. Oh, see, this is irrelevant. He's just chatting to me on the show. Do you want to play Black Ops 7 tonight on PlayStation? Yeah, Jack, sure. I'm just going to pop out quickly to get my takeaway. First bit of decent food I've eaten all week, other than Rue's food last night. Honestly, guys, if you live in Portsmouth, please search Rue's Kitchen and please purchase from her. I cannot express to you how good that lady's food is. I've said to her, you need to open like a restaurant. She needs to open a restaurant, but she's too scared to. And I said to her, why don't you take over the restaurant that my partner owns for a couple of days and do like a kitchen thing? And she's like, no, I'd be really worried about cooking in a restaurant. But honestly, her food is amazing. And that's coming from me. I'm hard to impress with food. It's I would rate it up there with some of the best food I've ever eaten anywhere in the world, full stop. It's honestly that good. So yeah, if you live in Portsmouth, Rue's Kitchen, unbelievable. If you like really hearty, soul warming, flavoursome food, it's so good. Anyway, boring you now. I'm going to go. I shall speak to you soon. Thank you very much for tuning in. And thank you once again to Chris Parry for coming on our show. And I will leave you with hopefully the Christmas #1 that's coming up, but it looks like Palestine, pro-Palestine, will probably win the Christmas #1 this year, but it could hopefully win it.
Hey! Special delivery for Cirque here. Hey! Santa suits, shiny boots, jingle on the floor. Knock, knock, number 10, Kier opened the door. Made my list, checked it twice, guess who's there again? Nigel Claus is coming down the fluid number 10.